Hey Wizard, so I thought it would be a really cool idea for us to build together a backtesting model in Excel using a simple moving average crossover, but also based on the hidden Markov model that we spoke about in the last video. In fact, the last video was about the Gaussian mixture model that we used as our signal or our indicator. But here I'm going to be using the hidden Markov model, Gaussian mixture hidden Markov model, I believe is the correct terminology, could be wrong. But that is what we're going to use, except we're going to do the calculations for the backtest in Excel. So we'll do that together here in this video. Before we do that, very quickly, just a big thanks to the wizards. So Don Culp, your comment really helped me figure out about the open and close there and what was going on. And Zachnafane as well. Same here. Really was so helpful. Some of the suggestions that you made here. And also thanks for spending so much time looking at what I'd done before, because I really did way overshoot the returns. And the reason for that was down to two things. So between all the comments here as well as Mark. By the way, Mark, I have looked at this for Bitcoin. And just look at a moving average crossover for Bitcoin just on its own. On its own, it's like comes out ridiculously good. So just on its own, but either way, if you do put the hidden Markov models on any of this Bitcoin, S&P, whatever, I've done it with a few things now, you get better results than what you got without the hidden Markov model. Not always better than benchmark, not always, sometimes you do, but definitely better than a strategy on its own. So my honest opinion is that if you're doing any kind of strategy, and I've only tested this around long, like a long regime, hidden Markov models are ridiculously good and useful, and I'm going to be including them a lot. So with that said, so what we're going to then do is we're now going to go and build this in Excel. And what are the hidden Markov models? So very quickly, this is just a way to detect mathematically based on probabilities what states the market can be in. And I've asked this model to look at like 4 states. So basically uptrending, downtrending, sideways, or chaos. That seems to be what it's sort of finding. But this is based on market returns and volatility. So this bit I'm going to do quickly in Python. And the code for doing this, by the way, it's the same link from the previous video. I will include it in this video. If you want all the Python code and how to do this all in Python, it's there. What that means is we're going to do a moving average crossover, but we're only going to do it based on what is actually happening here with the state. So if the Markov model signal is saying, yeah, we're in a good state, then we will apply the moving average crossover. And the reason I've chosen moving average crossover is because it's just so straightforward to model. It's just so easy, and it'll be really easy for you to pick that up in Excel, whatever you're doing, and work something much more complex in, because once you understand this and the concept of how to build a backtesting model, you're going to have no problems doing this and putting in your own strategies. Enough talking, let's start doing it. So I've got a file here called acid test. This is something else I was using for testing this and finding issues, whatever. But what we're going to do is we'll actually pull this here for the S&P 500. I could do gold or Bitcoin or whatever, but I'm just going to use the S&P because I'm familiar with the data and it helps me sanity check that everything's correct as well. And I'm going to pull the open, high, low, adjusted, close volume. In fact, I'm not going to be using volume, so I'm going to take that out. I'm not going to be using the low or the high yet, but I will actually need them to calculate the range or the volatility, so I'll include those. So where can you get data from if you're not using Python? So FMP, Financial Modeling Prep, which is who provide data for crypto wizards. For free, you can get it from Yahoo Finance, like I've done here, I'm using Pandas data frame, so that is Python. Alpha Vantage, but again, basically all the providers, you're getting it there. But if you go to Yahoo Finance, you can download the CSV file. So you can actually go to Yahoo Finance to do it. If you're using Python, just do what I'm doing here. Or like if you want something better, more advanced, crypto wizards, right? We use FMP, we use direct exchange data. You can add all sorts of indicators on there. Hidden Markov models are not on crypto wizards yet. I'm still refining this and learning more about it. But once I've got it pinned down, I'm going to actually put it in so you can just add it to your data automatically in there. So let's have a look here. So what I'm going to do is pull the SPY, so S&P 500 ETF from 2017 to 2022. I'm going to add in the returns in the range, and I need those to basically get my hidden Markov model indicator. But first, I'm going to add in the 12-day and the 21-day moving average. By the way, I'll show you in Excel how to calculate a moving average. It's really easy. I'm just going to do it in Python here because it actually gives me more data. I'll explain why. And then here I've got only by 21 days, so don't worry, it's no big deal. And then here, basically what I'm going to do is split that data into two sections. Because with my hidden Markov model training, I want to get this indicator and I want to put it, basically what I want to do is I want to get the indicator and I want to put it into my test, but I don't want to include the same days that it trained on in my backtesting because it's risky to me. I'd rather train it on the first 500 days of data and then on the remaining, say, 1,000 days of data, use what I trained it for to make predictions and use that predicted data rather than what it learned with, because it's going to be too clever if I trained it what it learned with. Now, that might not be true for hidden Markov models. It's just I'm being cautious because I don't understand the math behind it well enough yet to understand whether or not there's a risk of look-ahead bias. So I'm just going to separate it. And now we're going to go and train that hidden Markov model there, and I'm going to go and add it to my data frame, which I'm basically trying to do here. Now, for some reason, that has gone and failed. Let me see if I can find out what that is. Volume. Volume is not in there, so what I'm going to do is remove that because I never had it in the first place. So what it was doing was removing volume, but I'd already removed volume. It's removing high and low. And in fact, I probably don't need the returns and range anymore, but I'll go ahead and delete that in Excel. And let me just save this as SPY. So we'll go and save this now to Excel. I'm going to go over here. There it is, HMM SPY. I'm going to go and download that. And now we can actually begin the video, which is why I know you're here, right? Is you want to do this in Excel. So let's do that. Now, let's talk about where we are very quickly. I'll zoom in case you're watching this on your phone, like I sometimes do when I'm watching YouTube, and just save this here. So we'll go ahead and save this to my desktop rather than downloads, and there it is. So I have done this with Bitcoin. Again, I got a ridiculously good result, but let's see here with SPY how it goes, and it's open to critique. So I don't need returns and ranged. I only needed those to calculate HMM. And I've got my open price, I've got my adjusted close price, and I've got my moving averages. Now, how do you calculate moving average? Just average equals average, and then just put in the period of days that you want to use it for as such. And then you drag that formula down, right? So you would just drag that to the end. Now, I don't need to do that because, again, we did this part in Python, but that's how you calculate a moving average. So here I've got the 12-day, and here I've got the 21-day moving average. Obviously, if I was starting it in Excel, I would have to ignore these days for everything else, right? I would start my analysis down here or wherever my moving average is. But because we've done this in Python here, it's just very clean and it's clear cut. And you'll see the data starts from 2018, not 2017, because there's no training data that we use to train this HMM indicator involved here. We had split our data into training and test. We're only doing this now with the test data. Now, if you needed data, again, you could use Crypto Wizards or Alpha Vantage or whatever. If you don't want to do code, Crypto Wizards is probably by far the best. Of course, I'm biased. Like, it's my business and my website. Like, I love it. I built it for that. But you don't need to pay for data, right? So you don't have to be a member of Crypto Wizards to get data. Yahoo Finance will work. Like, I literally used Yahoo Finance here. To get hidden Markov model information, you will need to use Python. I don't know how to do it in Excel, but there is a really good channel called Nedl, N-E-D-L, that shows how to calculate this sort of stuff in Excel. And is such a great channel. I think that guy is absolutely incredible. So NEDL, great channel. At least I think so. So good, I've got a great starting point here. So how is this going to work? Well, the way it's going to work is we're going to generate a column that gives us a 1 or a 0. Are we in a trade, i.e. we are going long or not? You can do long, short, hold and all that, and I'll tell you how to do that as we go. But for my strategy, I'm either in, I'm long, or I'm not at all. That's what we're going to do here. And so in order to do that, I need to calculate my signals. So to calculate a signal, I'm just going to call this my moving average signal first, because my first signal is going to be based on moving averages. And my HMM signal is going to be based on, do I want to trade when I'm in state 2? Do I want to trade when I'm in state 1? Do I want to trade when I'm in state 0? I.e., if I go back here, do I want to trade when I'm green? Do I want to trade when I'm orange? Do I want to trade when I'm red? Do I want to trade when I'm black? How do I know? We don't. We're going to test it. That's what the backtesting model's for. And so that's what that is going to be. And we're only going to trade when both signals are true. So we need to calculate the signals. So the moving average signal is going to be equal to if, so if statement, if the 12-day is greater than the 21-day, then 1, otherwise 0. So 1 or 0, right? Very binary. If I wanted to do something like going short, instead of 0, I'd put -1. Or you can make your if statement even more complex to have 0s, 1s, and -1s in. So if you wanted your strategy to be long and short, that's literally all you need to do. But I'm just going to be long only, so I'm going to be 1 or 0. And also it's going to be easier to understand the rest of this. So it's actually easier for explaining things as well. So we're going to do that. So if I was to stop here and use this as my trigger, basically I'm long here, right? Or at least I would be long the next day. Let's put it that way. Etc. So I'll explain more about that in a moment. What about my HMM signal? Well, for this, I need some kind of lookup because I can have 4 possible states with how I've trained the model. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just put here lookup, and I'm going to put in state 0, 1, 2, 3. Let's do it like that. And here, let's just do a data validation. So data validation, list, and this is going to be yes or no. And here I'm going to put yes for everything. Okay, so what that means is I'm always going to be long based on HMM. So right now what that means is HMM, the hidden Markov model indicator is useless. It's always saying 1. That doesn't show here yet in this table, but you'll see how that works in a moment. So let's put in here HMM signal, and that's going to be equals to a VLOOKUP. So we're going to say, look up the state of 0, and I'm going to fix that column by hitting F4 and making sure there's no dollar by the 2 but only the G. And then I'm going to fix this table here again by hitting F4. So I'm saying look up 0, find it in this table. When you find it, jump across and return what's in the column after it. So if it finds 0, it'll return yes. If it finds 3, it'll return yes. So I'm going to say it needs to return it from the second column, and I'm going to put here 0 to mean it must be an exact match. And so everything here is going to say yes. But I want to turn this yes or no into 1 or 0. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to say if that is equal to yes, and I could have just made it return a 1 or a 0, but I'm going to do it like this. If it's equal to yes, do a 1, otherwise do a 0. And there's my HMM signal. So now I've still got some look-ahead bias here, which we're going to correct for in a moment. But here I need a trigger signal. And my trigger signal means that this and this has to be 1, right? This and this has to be 1. But my problem here is going to be that, let's say this and this is 1. Well, I'm at the end of the day. So I didn't get the return for this day, right? I would have got the return for the next day because I'm using the prior day signal to trade in the following day. So what I'm going to do here is I'm literally going to say that the trigger signal is only going to be a 1, i.e. the trigger signal is going to be what decides whether we're in a trade or not. Is only going to be a 1 if both of these are 1 based on the previous day. So if that, oh, sorry, we need an and formula here. So if and that is equal to 1 and that is equal to 1, then this is a 1, otherwise 0. And let me just double click for that to drag down. And let me drag it up here as well for you. Perfect. So what is this saying? This is saying 0. Even though these two signals here are flagging a 1, the trigger signal, and what I mean by the trigger signal is, was I long or not? So I could even call this is long. That's probably an easier way to understand it. Am I long? Well, I'm long here because yesterday my signal was a 1. Or what I could even do here is call this my trigger signal, not give it a lag, just to make this easier to understand visually so you can see what's going on here. And here I'll call this is long. Okay, so my is long here is only going to be based on yesterday's result. So I'm only going to be long on this day because yesterday the close ended up where it did, the moving average did what it did, the HMM signal or hidden Markov state was where it needed to be, then I'm going to be long. So you'll be like, Sean, what's with all the ones and zeros? Well, you'll see what is with that in a moment, because literally to calculate an equity curve, which is what you need here to do back testing, you need returns for sharp ratios, you need all this stuff. To do that, you need returns, etc. You need something to multiply whether you got that return or not. Yes or no. Did I get that return? That's why the 1 or 0. Or minus 1, excuse me, if it's a short strategy. So, that's equally as useful. So that's how it's going to work. Not making sense yet, maybe, but it will in a moment. Now, to know how our strategy is performing, it's not just was it profitable, because if buying and holding, for example, what are we doing here? The S&P 500, right? So if buying and holding the SPY was profitable, then, and it was more profitable than my strategy, then why did I do the strategy? So you need to compare your strategy to a benchmark. The benchmark is going to be buy and hold. So what we're going to do is calculate the returns for basically just buying on day 1 and holding till the final day versus our strategy, right? So let's call this here our returns. Now, how do returns work? Well, you need the natural log. A normal calculation for returns would be like this, right? It would be that divided by that minus 1, right? That is my percentage returns, so 0.1%. Or I could do, what is that minus that, and then what is that number that I just calculated divided by the starting number. I get to that same number, 10402, same number, right? The first way I showed you is the quick way. And by the way, a big shout out to Cousin Jacques again, because I was looking at one point in the past all over the internet for how do you build a backtesting model in Excel in an efficient way, because I wanted to build it into Crypto Wizards in an efficient way. So part of what works here also works in Crypto Wizards, etc., etc. And I found this amazing blog and I was like, gosh, this blog tells me everything I need to know. And it was literally the only one I could find on Google. It took me ages. It was Jacques' blog. I only realized when I read the author at the end, which I don't always look at. And I was like, oh, that's my cousin. So thank you, Jacques. Thank you, Cousin Jacques, for this. So here's how you calculate normal returns, right? The problem is, if I had all these returns here and I wanted to sum them, it doesn't make sense. If you're summing returns in terms of time frame, you need the natural log. If you're summing returns in terms of columns, like you have SPY, Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever, then you don't need to sum the natural log of those returns. You can just sum the returns depending on what you're doing. Here, I'm going to sum the natural log returns. And so what you need to do to calculate the log returns first is the following. You need to go logarithm, ln, and it's in Python, it's np.log, numpy.log. So here it's ln, and it's going to be here my adjusted close divided by, so that divided by that. Now I'm using the adjusted close here because this is the benchmark. So this is my log returns logrets, lrets, bench, right? So my benchmark returns. And this is my logarithmic returns. And I'll prove to you this is correct in a moment. I'll prove it with some math. But there we go. So there we go. So there are my returns. Now I need the benchmark product returns, or the cumulative sum, right? I'm going to call that the product, which is going to be equal to the current cumulative sum plus that. And if I just drag that down, there you go. You can see here's my cumulative returns. And then we need our normalized returns. So I'm going to call this bench normalized. And that is equal to exp, because we need to undo the log, basically, -1. And bingo. So if I go down to the bottom of my data here, we can see that there's a 72% or 73%, 729 return, right? If I bought on day one and I sold right on the last day, I said I had a 73% return, basically. Now, how do I know that's correct? Well, let's take our adjusted close number, because this is the benchmark, right? When we do our strategy, we won't use the adjusted close number. The benchmark, we use the adjusted close number, because the benchmark's the thing to beat, right? So you need that to be pretty stringent. So that's going to be 407 or 408 divided by, and here we need to go back up to the top, divided by, let's just put in here, this number here. Excel's gone funny on the Mac. Let's just do it this way. Let's get that last number there. And then let's say, what is that number divided by the starting number -1. 72.9%. 1339. It's exactly the same number that we've got down here. So there we go. So that just proves our ROI, or our return, our percent profit, however you want to call that, is exactly the same. Now, how does this actually look if we were to plot this on a curve, right? Or in a chart? Here we would plot it like such. There you go. There's the S&P 500 for the time period we're looking at. And if I went and brought this all the way back to our close price, which is this column here, you'll see it's the same chart. The only difference is this one starts at $250, etc. But when I do it based on returns, or what's known as the equity curve, well, I believe it's the equity curve, this starts from 0, right? So now I can compare this to other strategies, because they're all going to start from 0, basically. Same pattern, same chart pattern, exactly the same. But let's calculate some things on this. So now we've got our benchmark, which is based on just the close price. You know, what happened? How did the price move? Now we need our strategy, but we need to be a lot more careful here. So here we're going to say, here's our strategy. And this is going to be, or LRETs, natural log returns for our strategy, are going to be as follows. We're not going to take the close price, because the reality is this signal would have happened, and let's say the market closed, because it's the end of the day, that's when you get the close price. I would have only got in at, say, the open price here. And for now, for simplicity, I'm going to use the open price as follows. I'm going to say that what I got is I got the open price from when I got the signal, the day after I got the signal. And we've already lagged the signal. You see, here's where I got the signal. I actually got it here. But I'm not long until here. So let me show you, for example, if this is the day when I need to be long, or when I was long, then the assumption is I got the open price of that day. And I've already lagged the signal by 1 day. If I didn't lag the signal by 1 day, I would have to assume I got the open price a day later. But I've already lagged my signal by 1 day. So I got that open price. And in fact, I have to go down 1 day, sorry, because it has to be that divided by today's, right? So look at it like this. This is not the formula yet. B12 divided by B11. So tomorrow's open divided by today. Because I'm assuming I didn't get today's close. I could assume that I closed it today, and we'll play around with it, but take whatever gives you the more conservative number. So when you run your model, whatever gives you a worse Sharpe ratio and a worse return is the number you need to go with, right? You always want to be as conservative as possible. And normally I do -1, that would be the return. But it's not that. for two reasons. First of all, we need to take the log, the natural log of these, as follows. Secondly, if I go and pull this up here, for example, we didn't get any returns here because we weren't long. The is long is 0. So what we need to do is actually have 0 multiplied by the returns. And now you see how this whole thing works. So we had no returns here because we were in no position. There was no position going on here. And now we've got some returns. And there you go. Now, what you could also do is assume some trading costs, etc. I'm not going to do that right now because I'm just comparing to benchmark. I've not got any trading costs in the benchmark at the moment, which I wouldn't put in there actually. But I haven't got any. Basically, what I'm doing is seeing, does my strategy improve with HMM? That's basically what I'm saying. So I don't really need to go and put costs and stuff in, but you could discount your returns based on costs and all sorts of things. You could add minus 0.002 or whatever the fees are you pay, however you want to do it. And you could do that on your final returns here, basically is what I'm saying. You would add on subtracting returns or penalizing yourself because of costs. I'm not going to do that here. But here we go. So here I've got my log returns here for the strategy, which is looking good. So what that means is if the market was in the state that I specified it had to be in within here. So if I basically said no here to all of those, I'm never in any trades. If I said yes to this one here, then provided, you know, the moving average is 1 and this is 0, then I'm in a trade. Let's see if I can find a trade somewhere. So none for that one. Let's move that yes to 1 over here. Let's see if there's any here. There we go. So here's where the market was in state 1 and the moving average signal was 1. That happened on the day before. And so the following day, here's the return I got. That's how I got. It's that multiplied by that. If the number 1 was a negative, that means I shorted it. So that's how that's working. So let's go back here and remove that over here as such. And there's my log returns for the strategy. Now I need to do the same thing as we did here, right? So I'm going to just copy these two columns here. I'm going to change this to say strat for strategy. And I'm going to change this to say strat for strategy. Strategy. Let me just check that. Is that? That is that. Okay, perfect. And then double click those. And there we are. Now what we need to do is I need to make these all 1 again because I'm getting no numbers to play with. And then we'll come back and adjust that as we go. But there we go. So now we've got our log returns going on. We've got our cumulative returns. We've got our strategy cumulative returns. Now, based on moving average crossover, now I need to delete these final items here because as you can see, there is no number here. So what I could do if I really wanted to is I could just end it like this, I guess. And there we go. You know, that gets rid of all those horrible NA things, or I could just delete them and ignore them. That's probably the better way to do it. But actually, I'll just leave them in for now. That's fine. So we have this here. That's basically our last day of data, which is how I've closed it off. And this is saying that moving average crossover basically did 21.6% return versus the benchmark, which was 72.9%. So moving average crossover on its own has not done well for the S&P. Depending on the asset you're doing, like I said, do this with Bitcoin, you'll see some amazing results. It just didn't do very well. But now I want to see is if I start changing what states I allow the strategy to work in, does it perform better? So basically, if we go back to this chart here, if I allow myself to trade the moving average crossover based on these states here, i.e. this is filtering out poor times to trade, am I more profitable? Well, takeaway answer is it will be. So what I'm going to do here, and this is due to hidden Markov models again, fantastic stuff. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go and chart this. Let's go and take this here, and I'm going to, in fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cut this and paste it next to this here so that these two things are together. And I'm going to put them down one row as such, like that, because I want to chart them. So let's go down here, Command Shift down, and then here I want to insert a chart as follows. I'm going to cut this and I'm going to paste it here on my lookup tab because I want to play with it live. Interesting, interesting. So let's just, I won't put the Sharpe ratio on yet. We'll calculate that in a moment, but I'm going to go returns here, benchmark, and returns strategy. So my benchmark at the moment is going to be as such. So here's my benchmark. It's going to be this here. And my strategy is this here. And what I can do is I can literally just say, you know, times by 100. And that's, or actually not times by 100, we'll just take percent over here as such. There you go. 73 versus, or 72.9 versus 21.6%. Now, let's actually zoom in as well, because this is really difficult to see what's going on. And let's just shrink this chart a bit. Let's delete these columns here so we can see everything, right? Now, let's go and delete all of these yeses. All right, so hang on, I've just noticed an issue here. The HMM signal is looking up the moving average signal. So sorry, that would have been very confusing for you. This should be the HMM it's looking up. So I just noticed that as we were doing our chart. There you go, that's better. So when the HMM is where it should be and the moving average signal, then here. So I'll correct it on the video. You probably would have seen it already flagged up, but there you go. That's more like it. So now let's go and put everything to yes, right? So the moving average signal crossover strategy on its own does 21.6%, right? So that's cool. Now let's hard code that here. So again, by the way, if you're moving from Windows to using a Mac and I know I moan about this all the time, for Excel, it is so painful. There you go. So here we are. There is our 21.6% hard coded. So this is our basic strategy. And then, you know, with HMM is going to be whatever we have here. So right now it's the same number. So I'm going to copy that format. There we go. So right now it's the same number. Now let's delete all of these and let's select yes here. So interestingly enough, just trading based on state 0 means that we would be positive if we included the moving average crossover strategy. We wouldn't be as good as just basic without the HMM, but we'd be positive. Now, let's try it with 1. So let's delete that. Let's select 1. 1, we make negative returns, right? Negative 14. So we're not going to include 1. We'll include 0 in a minute, but not 1. 2, we beat the straightforward, the basic strategy. We get 29.5%. Let's get rid of that. State 3, nothing. So what 0 over here was profitable. 2 was profitable. And those two together are yielding us 41.5%. If I put 1 in as well, I get back to 21.6. Those two together are getting us 41.5%. Now that has not beaten the market. Hasn't beaten the market. But in terms of Sharpe ratio, for sure, it's going to be much better than market and basic. And that's what we're going to calculate now. So for the Sharpe ratio, we have to assume, say, 255 trading days in the year, something like that. So we're going to call that N, right? N is 255 days. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say our benchmark. And so that's here. So here's our benchmark there. So our returns, our benchmark. We'll just put that as equal to this so that you can see these here. I'm going to cut this down here. So here's our returns, right, as such. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put our sharps. And that's going to be some numbers here. So we've got n number of days, which is 255. So what we need to do is we need to work out, first of all, for our benchmark, what were the average returns multiplied by 255 divided by the standard deviation, i.e. the volatility, multiplied by the square root of 255. So here we're going to call the square root n. So that's going to be square root of 255 as such. Right, so to make this easier and clearer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this is going to be the average. Here, actually, we'll put it here. So let's call it the mean, and let's call this sigma as such. And you'll see here, first we're going to calculate the mean. So the mean is going to be the average of, here we go, all these ones over here, bang. And that needs to be multiplied by this n number. And sigma is equal to the standard deviation of all of these ones over here. Did I do standard deviation wrong? Standard deviation. There you are. I'm sure that's the one. Could be wrong. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. And then there you go. So our Sharpe ratio is simply going to be that divided by that. So our benchmark Sharpe ratio is 0.72. And what I'm going to do is just neaten that up to be like that. And in fact, we can round this. We can round this to two decimal places. 0.72. Now, let's do this for the basic strategy. So the basic strategy, so what we need to do is just make this here yes and this yes very quickly. We'll hard code it in. Is we'll calculate it here and then we'll hard code it and then replace it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, if I go and take my average and I'm doing the same thing again, except now I'm doing it here on column, where am I? Here, column M. And let's fix that in there. And that's going to be multiplied by big N over there. And I'm going to paste the same thing here just to save me going back to the other tab. And I'm going to put it in like that, standard deviation of that. And it's not multiplied by that. It's multiplied by this number here. And here we go. So 0.44. Okay, so what that means is, let's go and hard code that now over here. So I'm going to paste the values as such. Now let's introduce our HMM and see what that comes to. So without the HMM, we had the benchmark of 0.72. We had 0.44 with the basic without the HMM. And so now if I go and add in that HMM, like we had before, I get 1.08. So even though I've got a lower return compared to where we are right now in the market, I've got a much better Sharpe ratio than I did against the benchmark. Much better. Now let's go and see here what's going on and see what would happen if we went and changed this. Because what I care about just looking at this is this Sharpe ratio. This is what I care about. Because if I've got my money in the market, there's no guarantee that I'm going to get the returns. Like, you would have been really happy here when the market was tanking and you weren't in. Yes, the market went skyrocketing, but you didn't know that was going to happen for sure here. No one did. No one knew that. So the Sharpe ratio, for every dollar of return I get, what's the dollar of risk? That's what I care about. Now, for argument's sake, let's say that we went and in fact, let's hard code the figures as we have them here. Let's just hard code these down here. Just so that we have that, to compare to. Let's say that we go and change this to be the adjusted close there, or here, versus the adjusted close on this day. Let's say we got the perfect price at the perfect time right? Let's see what kind of a difference that makes to our model. And all of a sudden, you'll note that we've actually made a higher return than the market with a Sharpe ratio of 2.15. So you can see, and this is the point I wanted to make, because it was thanks to the wizards in the comments that actually really helped me get that analysis I was doing straightened out, because I totally overlooked the open, which I should have known about because I've seen this before. And in fact, in the Crypto Wizards algorithm, we use open. Like if it knows there's an open price, it will go for the more conservative value. But when I'm looking at this, what I'm seeing is a lot of potential for this strategy to be really, really good. I mean, when I look at the basic here, so if I go and I put myself completely in again, just look at basic. Sorry, that was hard-coded. So basic now is at 0.76. So we could overwrite that, right? But with HMM is actually 2.15. So no matter what way I skin this cat, no matter what way I look at this, hidden Markov models are helping the situation. I mean, I could assume that I got that price, but I only closed it at the next day's open. So let's go with that. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Like, that's just some ridiculous number. Like something's gone wrong here, actually. I must have got something wrong. Anyway, let's undo that because I'm getting crazy stuff now. But that's basically what you need to watch out for. So let's undo all of that and get it back to how it was before. So conservatively, by knowing the state of the market, I would like to argue, and I would like people to argue with me, and please don't feel like you need to accept as anything I've said in this video as fact or the way things should be done. Like we're very open here, right? So you can disagree and ask questions. But I would like to argue that by knowing the state based on hidden Markov models, you have an edge. If you're doing this type of trading, like, RSI, stochastic, whatever, like moving average crossovers. I've tested this against a lot of different assets, but this is the one that I think is just the easiest and also consistent with the last video. But it happened with gold, it happened with Bitcoin as well. Like I've literally done this in Excel manually for both.